Today, we're diving into one of the most famous and, frankly, wildest stories of survival ever told. We're talking about a 40-year-long miracle that starts with total desperation and ends with a mysterious food literally falling from the sky. This is the story of manna, and it's all about hunger, faith, and the very strange rules of divine food service.
So try to put yourself in this situation for a second. You've just pulled off the escape of the century. You saw plagues, you saw a sea split in half. You're finally free after generations of slavery. But you're now in the middle of a huge, empty desert, and there is nothing to eat. That incredible feeling of freedom? Yeah, that's fading fast, and a much more primal feeling is taking over. Just pure, gnawing hunger.
And this is exactly where the story really kicks off. Not with some big celebration, but with absolute desperation in a place called the Wilderness of Sin.
Now the timing here is so important. It's only been a little over a month since they left Egypt. They are brand new at this whole being free thing. They're vulnerable, they're figuring it out as they go, and whatever food they manage to bring with them, it's gone.
I mean, listen to this. This quote is just staggering. The people are so hungry that they're actually starting to miss being slaves. They're remembering the pots of meat and the endless bread they had back in Egypt and are literally saying they'd rather have died there, full, than starve to death out here as free people. That's how bad things had gotten.
So right when they hit rock bottom, when their faith and their very survival are on the line, a divine promise is made. And it's a solution that's not just about food, it's about something much, much bigger.
And check this out. The promise comes with a really fascinating condition. It's not just, here's some food, enjoy. The text says it right there, that I may prove them. So from the very beginning, this miracle food is designed to be a test of their trust and their ability to follow directions.
And the promise is super specific, addressing their complaints directly. They were missing the meat from Egypt? Okay, at night you'll get meat. They were crying out for bread? Fine, in the morning you'll have bread. It was a complete and total answer to exactly what they were asking for.
And boom, the first part of the miracle happens that same day. That evening, a huge flock of quail comes and covers the camp, making them incredibly easy to catch. So, the promise of meat? Delivered. But that just raises the stakes for the morning, right? What in the world was this bread from heaven gonna be?
So the next day arrives, and what appears isn't just some weird new food. It came with a very specific and very important instruction manual.
Can you just picture this scene? The sun comes up, the dew burns off, and the desert floor is covered in this stuff. It's small, it's round, it's flaky, it's like nothing anyone has ever seen before. And they all just look at each other, totally confused, and ask the only question they can. Manhu, which in Hebrew basically means, what is it?
And that right there is how this miracle food got its name, manna. Literally comes from them asking, what is it? The text describes it as looking like a small white seed and tasting sweet, kind of like a cracker made with honey.
Now, this food from heaven came with rules, 4 of them, and they were non-negotiable. First, you only gather enough for your family for that one day, about 2 liters per person, no more. Second, don't even think about saving any for tomorrow. Third, on Friday, the 6th day, you gather a double portion. And fourth, don't bother looking for it on Saturday, the Sabbath, because it's not going to be there.
And these rules weren't just about logistics. They immediately became a test. Were people going to trust that this food would show up again tomorrow? Or would fear kick in and make them try to control the situation themselves?
So the first test was the no hoarding rule. You can just feel the temptation here, right? After a lifetime of food being scarce and coming off near starvation, the urge to just hide a little extra, just in case, must have been almost impossible to resist.
But for the ones who gave in to that fear, who didn't listen and hid some away, well, they woke up to a disgusting surprise. The manna they'd tried to save was crawling with worms and smelled awful. The lesson was immediate and pretty gross. You have to trust the daily provision. You can't hoard it.
The second big test was all about the Sabbath. The instruction was clear. That double portion you gathered on Friday would miraculously stay fresh for 2 days, but on Saturday morning, there would be nothing on the ground. This required a totally different kind of trust, not just trusting in provision, but trusting enough to actually rest. And yet, of course, some people just couldn't help themselves. They snuck out on Sabbath morning just to check, just in case. And what did they find?
exactly what they were told they'd find. Absolutely nothing. The rules weren't suggestions. They were laws of this new reality.
Now, this whole daily cycle of provision, rules, and trust, it didn't last for a week or a month or even a year. The sheer scale of what was happening is what makes this story so mind-blowing.
40 years. Just let that number sink in. For 40 years, 6 days a week, an entire nation, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, was fed by this bread from heaven. A whole generation was born and grew up to adulthood knowing no other kind of bread. It's an almost incomprehensible length of time for a daily miracle to continue.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the legacy is huge. First, it literally built the 7-day week, with a mandatory day of rest, into the very structure of their society. Second, it sustained a nation, keeping them alive to complete their journey. And third, they were told to keep a jar of the manna forever, as a physical piece of evidence for all future generations of how they survived the desert.
And this final quote really drives home the perfect timing of it all. The manna didn't stop a day early or a day late. The party ended the very moment they reached a new land where they could grow their own food. It was their constant companion for exactly as long as they needed it.
When you boil it all down, this ancient story is about so much more than just food. It really makes you think about how survival isn't just about having resources, but about the trust and the rules that govern how we use them. It forces us to ask, what can a story about daily bread and a mandatory day off teach us today about that delicate balance between our individual needs, our trust in the system, and the community that holds us all together?